One final thought. We're working with Therese Sullivan, and she is kind of giving us the insight. We have a tremendous amount of technology. It's coming at us. This iBeacon thing now is going to come at us, where you'll stand in front of a TV audio part of the store, and because you have your iPhone on, and you're playing with this app, or you're using the app, you can get a 10% discount. It'll offer you a 10% discount. It'll manage your movements within a store, so you can get to where you want to go first. So if you want to go to bread, you say bread, and the things will take you to the bread section or whatever. So what I think we need to do is there's more coming. This is just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
And again, so
that came from Theresa. Theresa turned us on to the post. She and Ken Sinclair.
Well, no, Ken Sinclair turned us on to the post initially, but when I researched it, I contacted Theresa, and she told me a lot more about it.
Well, tell our listeners a little bit about Therese Sullivan, because she's got just a kicking website and is a very, very bright woman, and would encourage all our listeners to go check her website out. It's buildingcontext.com, right? Or .me. Buildingcontext.me, I think. I mean, I know you and I both really, really like her stuff, and we're trying to get her to come on the show with us. But tell our listeners about Therese Sullivan and what she's up to.
Well, I actually forwarded her Ken's article from the January automatedbuildings.com January edition, and told her about Comfy, and she really lifted up the roof on this whole thing, and saying about the company building robotics startup company with roots at the Center for Built Environment at Berkeley Education at www.cbe.berkeley.edu. And the Berkeley Systems Engineering Program is a training of top crop PEs and the people that are putting these new products into play. It's like an area of our country where we're really seeing technology gel together, because all these think tanks and these corporate funded educational groups, but they're leading into startup company after startup company after startup company. But she gave us some insight to it about the she interacted with this woman that was on the Ken Sinclair post when she was managing occupancy surveying program at CBE. She was in the communication press for the Integral Group's IDA Net Zero Energy Building. So there is a long history of work that was done, engineering that was done, brainstorming that was done, investments that were done, and now we're starting to see the crops are starting to come into play. These ideas are turning into technology that's becoming marketable and sellable. And so these people are taking all these years of very intense work. They were doing measures of success in energy retrofits. And then what Theresa said was they profoundly get it that there are two measures of success in any energy retrofit. What do the meters say, and what do the occupants say? The second, with this application from the robotics was that the second impacts human factors like productivity and employee retention. So the dollar value at stake is much higher than just energy costs. And again, this is Therese Sullivan's words. I think that to agree, Comfy is a productization of that research. So I think Comfy is a significant addition to the market and worthy of any attention that we can bring to it. So,
Kenny, I would totally agree with that. And talking about the energy savings, that's what Mark Jewell and Jack Cano and those guys with the Honeywell EEO program. I mean, they really talk about when you dial into it. It's like energy savings is the bonus. That's the icing on the cake. But the productivity, cost, the savings, if you have a better environment, having better productivity, and then the turnover, the cost for replacing people with turnover is huge. So didn't mean to interrupt you there, but I didn't want that to get lost, that guys like Mark Jewell are totally all over that.
No, I'm a happy interjector, because again, I didn't want to just keep reading it, but there's so much to talk about that, I just feel as though, I'm being a little bit erratic on picking paragraphs here and there, but the theme here is that there's technology it's like a tsunami coming across. It depends where you live too, and what markets you're into, and what you do for a living. But we're seeing these disruptive technologies from out there in California, where there's just seems to be the source of the majority of our new technology seems to be coming from that area. And look up all the people that we have in the Control Trends Awards, all the solution people are all out in California. So they have a different way of thinking. That's where they need the energy fixes the most. That's where the investments are going. That's where the in-house intelligentsia is there, and then it's turning into products. So
it is, Kenny, and it's interesting. So one takeaway is definitely check out Therese Sullivan's blog, buildingcontext.me. We'll put a link on our website for that. But the second thing is interesting. because you do look at California, but one of our gals that really tracks the energy, the tax incentives and things like that works with us was telling me that Florida just canned the majority of their tax incentives for doing energy upgrades. And you remember we talked to Ross Malme from Skipping Stone at he's a lobbyist that works with the energy in Haystack, yeah.
Project Haystack.
Project Haystack, yeah. And, he was saying, he sort of took us off to the side and he said that, a lot of these states, like in Georgia falls into that category, and obviously Florida is now too, the energy companies don't really want to incentivize too much energy savings, it seems, because they've got energy to sell. California and Texas seem to be the two big exceptions. So, yeah, to your point, I mean, obviously California really drives this technology, but I guess from my perspective, I think the rest of the country is going to lag behind because if you're not incentivized, I mean, there's a big difference between getting a building owner to invest in an energy saving system if he's getting 30 or 40 or 50% tax credit, and one where he's got to make that same investment in a state like Georgia or Florida, I don't know how it is in Pennsylvania, and he's not getting those same tax incentives. So this is a sort of an interesting disparity between different parts of the country. What do you think?
Well, yeah, and there's more to the. It's like a very complicated formula with different variables, and in different places they use different variables. But I think another thing that's really getting challenging is that energy is a business, and people invest in it. People have bought stock, and they own parts of this generation company. And if they're not generating and selling it and making money, then their investment portfolio is lacking. So what they have to do is we still got to, and that's important, and people have a right, to expect a return on their investments and whatever. But you have a lot of government money that's being put out into the play, and these energy companies have to spend the money that the government's given them to incentivize energy efficiency. So regardless of, in some places you only have one or two suppliers. Where living in the middle of somewhere, you get a lot of crossfeed. There's a lot of options. In Pennsylvania, for instance, we're very fortunate. We have a lot of power producing utilities here, and so we don't have brownouts per se the way they do in California, where if you're at the end of a run, you only get your energy coming from one direction. But so that they have to have the efficiency. So you've got all these variables here that's very important. Here it's not so important. Here you have many choices. Here you have very little choices. But the bottom line, as I understand it, is that we have these peakers. We have 20% to 25% of our electricity is wasted because we have to be prepared for these awful moments where the brownout could take down a city or take down half of the state. So in order to cure that and solve that, we need to have this smart grid, and we need to have open ADR. Don't disagree with that, Kenny. I think it's interesting because you just hit it, that you got some opposing forces there. You've got the whole need to conserve energy versus the need to make money, and so it's interesting. And so I think, like you say, in certain states where brownouts are imminent, like California and Texas, you seem to have energy incentives. In other parts of the country, you don't. So, hey, would like to know what you guys think in comments about this debate. I think it's just sort of an interesting trend to track. And like I said, my girl that was selling a lot based on Florida tax incentives was really upset that they've canned them. They're no longer there. So interesting stuff. But Kenny, I tell you what, let's bring our next guest on.